In 1974, a self-styled singer who briefly worked as a session vocalist released two albums on 20th Century Records and promptly vanished. I am talking about Rita Jean Bodine. And from the first of those, titled Bodine Rita Jean, the track I've Been So Long. I've been so long. I'm wondering what that's really supposed to mean. Is that kind of like the selective omission of a word? I've been what for so long?
I've been so long.
Now we have quite a dark sort of vibe coming together here with the synth strings in the background and the mournful tone of the key center and tempo and all.
I've been so long.
Yeah, an overall rhythmless arrangement guided by the kind of blurring of synth strings or maybe a bit of real string in there, and slightly accented by piano and bass. Dun, dun.
I've been so long from my home.
I've been so long from my home. Yeah, I'm thinking that the title could, I've been many things so long, is what this could be getting at. I've been, yeah, but we'll see. Um, the credits given on the entries on Discogs are very anonymous and, yeah, not listed on the back cover.
I've got
I've got Stardust. Well, now she's starting to let her range show, her ability to hold notes, her grit, her range. Yeah, an overall rising, swelling melancholy to this arrangement. I love that kind of blurring of strings amid the piano, the light, just choice accents, two note. Slow plunge of those toms, giving kind of more like an impending sense of explosiveness on the horizon. She's really bearing her soul here. How far is low down when
Begging for more.
when I'm begging for more?
Begging for more.
like that tone right there too. Kind of despite the melancholy nature of this track, there was a kind of air of seductiveness in that tone. Yeah, so she's showing several potentials just in this song alone, despite its bleak and kind of like doom laden quality almost. And while the song isn't really going to break out into some fast paced rush to the finish, there is gonna be kind of like an emotional crescendo ultimately, and then the 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 dim lights will fade.
I've got no place.
And despite her emotiveness and the expression she's putting into these lyrics, uh, the lyrics them are perfectly decipherable. So I probably don't need to like speak them.
I've got no place.
It's she's speaking from a standpoint of desolation of and solitude of
Left to roam, and I'm so far.
just imagine if she had gotten to sing this like on TV back in the 70s, like on some program. Huh. Just imagine how imagine the effect this could have had on audiences. Just her doing like a theatrical performance to this number, with just that 70s era kind of where they dim out the margins and just focus kind of like a soft white light on the subject being her, and maybe like a few silhouetted background players is all you see, and her just kind of going right into this. And
From my home.
I could see her at this point kind of like on the ground as she sings this. Yeah, kind of like side down on the floor, just kind of perched up slightly above the waist, just with her head kind of tilted up, like, singing this into the camera or something, and just. Yeah, that was Rita Jean Bodine with I've Been So Long. A very emotionally riveting piece off of her self titled 1974 album, one of two released that year. And yeah, on the cover, there's like oh, it looks like kind of like a watercolor enhanced picture of the singer, and looking straight into the camera from kind of like giving one of these looks under a very large 20s 30s style hat, or one of those hats from the 70s that were kind of like evocative of that era, yet slightly larger. Has a really large rim, and she's got this big kind of fluffy ascot, and apparently a very large jacket with uh and it's smoking, that whole vibe of like kind of high style and retro lady. Yeah, definitely. That's why I introduced her as self-styled at the beginning. And on the back cover, she's kind of like looking sideways, giving and in both pictures and in all the photos I've seen of her, she has these really kind of arresting, kind of fiery eyes, usually straight into the camera. There are some other photos of her on Discogs wearing kind of like marabou tops and big brim hats, evocative of, like, I don't know, like the Edwardian to the Dust Bowl era. And yeah, appears to be. I can't really quite tell her height. Actually no. From a photo of her sitting, I imagine that she's a rather tall person, tall, thin, just self-styled. Yeah, you don't forget her when you see her. In some ways, she almost looks like she could be Cher's emaciated retro cousin. I say that because the faces are somewhat similar. Yeah, I mean both being just kind of tall, somewhat like visually arresting figures. Yeah, let's hear another track from her album, Lovin Man.
Hey, you, come over here. I want to talk to you for a minute.
Okay, I like the funky arrangement we got here. Very different vibe from the last track, and yeah, the like really tight rhythm groove going, and those like sparkly chimes amid her kind of sassy vocal. Let's see where that goes.
'Cause I'm looking for a loving man. I've been searching everywhere that I can.
Oh wow, I like her sustained voice and the kind of the kind of like erotic urgency that's coming to the fore here. And I apologize in advance if there are any if there's any roughness with this file.
Just looking for a loving man.
She's really good enunciating, making the words clear.
Wait as long as I can stay. I'm just looking for someone.
I like that key sound right there. Bum, na 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 na. Yeah, G with an A in it, with a second, with a suspended second. Da, G, G, A.
To do me right. I've been
And the kind of steamy vibe of this, the kind of bassy, kind of creating sort of a, nighttime.
doing without much too long.
Nighttime street corner vibe, like 70s era urban, you know.
I've got to find myself a loving man. I don't
Notice that like sustained kind of luminous synth tone, yeah, kind of like a sort of like neon light kind of tone almost amid the kind of dark gritty urban sounds that are going on, like that ner 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 bit of the guitar.
care how long it is. I'll wait because I'm looking for a loving man.
Kind of sassy background vocals.
Searching everywhere that I can.
Big beat, kind of emphasizing the kind of a big downbeat on the third.
For a loving man. Sometimes
Oh, they skip it on that one. I like that. That's interesting.
wait as long as I can stay. Beautiful people are hard.
Boom, boom, boom. There's some elements to this that presage the Hall & Oates song, "Bigger Than Both of Us," that appeared on not on the album of the same name, but on the next album, "Beauty on a Back Street," in 1977. Yeah, that song's a bit slower, but it has a similar arrangement. And there's this bass line in it that goes boom, 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 boom. Yeah, and it's similar key center.
To come by. You wanna know something?
Yeah, what's the first lines in that song? There's a million of us, but we're not alone. Something like that. I'm starting to kind of hear that vocal line over this. But to its credit, this came out 3 years earlier.
You look like the kind of man that could make me come alive.
You look like the kind of man that would make me come alive. She pauses after come, a double entendre there. And I take it that she's speaking to a man she just met. Yeah, there's a real 70s kind of sexual revolution, hedonistic vibe going on here. Kind of that urban anonymity, that era, I guess, where there was kind of, supposedly, as legend goes, there was a certain looseness. And I'm not saying this is not necessarily reflective of the singer, but in certain enclaves of the city environment, there was a certain looseness, a certain, like, get right down to it type vibe that never came back again, like after, say, the arrival, well, the advent of serial killers, and like well publicized serial killers during the late 70s, and then followed in the early 80s by the arrival of AIDS. Yeah, an era kind of like pre Looking for Mr. Goodbar, say, where kind of like post hippie, yeah, just where there was a certain kind of unbridled looseness that is just probably unlike any other time in modern history.
To walk and talk and live and breathe and dream and scheme and love and bang. Looking up at the dance, searching everywhere that I can. Looking for a love and bang.
Hear that wood block on there, and I love the trade-off between the sassy kind of background vocals. I unfortunately no credits. I don't know who they are, but and her just kind of like emoting and taking it higher.
Long as I can fly, looking for another man. Looking
Wow, listen to her growl. Look at all the grit she's putting into it. I'm getting somewhat of a Millie Jackson vibe in a way from this. Yeah, a similar grit. On this track, you'd be surprised. Yeah, actually, I would imagine that a lot of people hearing this without seeing the vocalist would never guess that she's white. I need a doctor. I like the kind of steamy, kind of bedroomy tone she's putting in here.
I really need it. What's a man?
Yeah, half singing, kind of half like bedroom talky, whispery. Just like Millie would do from time to time. These moments in 70s songs where they're heading toward the end, and things kind of just become this blur, this almost like kaleidoscope of sound, of like multi-tracked, half whispering, ad-libbing, and such. Well, I like the arrangements we've got going on. We've got some really tasteful, refined, like elements coming in at different angles. At least 5 things going on at once. Let's see. Very kind of like sounds like steel, like dobro guitar. Yeah, and just played really lightly. Yeah, those notes. Had some interesting percussion going on a bit there, some Fender Rhodes, and of course the really tight bass, drum rhythmic pattern. I guess maybe I hear two guitars going on. I hear one kind of like electric, just slight mild picking, and then that kind of like dobro sound. Some sundry percussion here and there, or a minute ago anyway. Yeah, that was Lovin Man by Rita Jean Bodine, and before that, I've been so long. Yeah, two very different songs. One very contemplative and emotional and confessional, and the other kind of sassy, more hedonistic, more come hither. Yeah, let's hear one more track from the album. Uh, Dynamite.
Dynamite. Right in the
Now, once again, a very different vibe from the other two. More of kind of like a kind of spacey soul vibe going on.
I've been going out to find some love and stuff. So far I've been disappointed. I couldn't get enough. I don't need
Kind of an overall
sophisticated, overrated man. I just need someone to do me, want me, give me all I can.
Okay, you can still tell what she's singing about pretty easily. Yet her vocals are given more of kind of like a remote quality in the production and in the mix.
To be so fine, he's got to be all mine.
And now she is sounding more like a pop singer.
Got to be dynamite. Right in the night. Dynamite. Right in the night.
Oh, that was quite a note, quite a leap there in her range and such over some rather stop start kind of rhythmic patterns, rather
Over there, looking fine to me. Why don't you get over here? Let's see what we can see.
I mean, you can marvel at her and her vocals, but you gotta also take a moment to pay a bit of attention to the rhythmics. It's amazing the links that drummers and bassists would go to back in the day to find like these choice patterns for each song. I mean, I imagine the preparation that went into that. I bet if you isolated the rhythmic track from this song, it would match, and then you put it through kind of like a matching system, it would match no other. Unlike a lot of tracks that have come out since, I don't know, since the proliferation of sequencers and such that have, yeah.
You're an apple, I should say, can't stand 1 minute more. Now maybe we could find a way to slip on out the door. I'm gonna make it down. I'm gonna best fit in round.
I apologize for some file corruption here. That's why I'm just like playing this, because it's a great song. It doesn't make it unlistenable, but it is a bit of a nuisance.
I'm gonna make you lie down. I'm gonna make right in the night.
Oh wow, it's hard to even pause because she just suddenly when you're about to, she just holds like a note and you think, oh no, gotta let that play out. I was about to comment though on that the cymbals kind of have sort of like an echoey quality to them. There's an overall just kind of misty sound, like sweep to everything, like. Now we got some like phasing going on, bit of a kind of like almost kind of like a jet engine-y feel. Like, well, at the beginning, definitely, and. Oh no! It seems like the whole sonic layering of this is all just one big swirl. It's like the whispering like vocal interjections or like dynamite. Yeah, Dynamite. Though it's like panning between my two speakers. Like it'll start here and then it'll kind of transfer over here. Dynamite. Okay, I take back what I said about her sounding more like a pop singer on this. I'm once again I'm getting quite the convincing like soul diva element from this. I guess it's more that the song initially sounded kind of like maybe like a 1969 era uh, Stax Vault, or like maybe more like a brass rock pop number with some psychedelic effects employed, like a Stax influenced like brass rock pop number with like psychedelic phasing and such. See what I meant by kind of psychedelic? And yet without those sexy, sultry vocals going on that women weren't quite so unbridled as to use on many 60s era, many like 68, 69 era recordings. Okay, yeah, that was the main consequence of the corruption. It kind of like just suddenly snaps out a bit prematurely. That was Dynamite by Rita Jean Bodine. Yeah, I threw that one in like a third, yeah, a rare third track in a video because the there were some problems with that file, but it was such a great song. I just wanted to get it out there, not knowing whether I will be revisiting this subject in the future, given that she only did 2 albums. And yeah, I came across her just 2 years ago. I only found out about her in 2017 when I was on a big like exhaustive 1974 kick during the summer of 2017, and it was during that summer that I raised the directory, the 1974 directory, from like 900 some odd albums to like well over 11, almost like a 2.5 month 1974 listening binge. I managed to add well over 200 albums to the directory, and I to facilitate to aid in my discovery, and I did this search feature I worked these search functions on Discogs to isolate new releases from 1974, and was just going through the pages and seeing a bunch of things I already had. Some things that didn't interest me because the performers in question were maybe like too kind of past their prime at the point, or whatever, or maybe it was like in the Nashville vein, or one of the few areas that I don't tend to cover. And then on one of the pages I came across one of her albums, and I thought, and then I click her on, and wow, 2 albums, 1974. I guess aside from a few credits she did around this time, like a few background vocals between 1972 and 74, and then one outlier from 1977, an album by Blondie Chaplin. The same year as her own 2 albums, she appeared on the Fall into Spring album by Rita Coolidge, and a few kind of lesser known country rock singers on assorted labels. In the late 1960s, in 1967, she cut 2 singles with this white girl vocal quartet, The Babies. Yeah. And that was like her only other, yeah. So basically as a full-on like performer or band member, 2 singles in 1967, and then 2 albums in 1974. And there are some photos of her though. You Google her name and it brings up, well, a few rows of quite striking photos of the singer. Yeah. Okay, a lot of them duplicates of her two album covers, but there are a few fashion covers. I guess the yeah, both she quite went out and quite flexed her fashion flair on the front and back covers of her two albums, and yeah. Oh, she tried to plug this album with a cover of Dancing in the Street. Yeah, not one of the better tracks off the album, but it's funny. Sometimes the thing that can date an album most is the choice in covers, because bear in mind that when you hear kind of a Motown evergreen covered on a late '70s or early '80s album, or even a bit beforehand, what you're hearing is a choice in covers from in a cover's choice from an era when popular hits of the 1960s were not really in on radio rotation, because there was I guess there wasn't much of a market for golden oldies radio in the time, and so people weren't hearing those everywhere. They it was before the era when those songs were brought back by advertisers and the whole, and there was like an oldies station in every market. Yeah, and so younger listeners maybe weren't as familiar with songs by the Supremes and Martha and the Vandellas. Whereas now, I don't care. Even if you're a Zoomer, there is no excuse not to at least know the basic, five big hits of some of those acts. Yeah. If you're not familiar, you must be living under a rock. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, three songs by Rita Jean Bodine from, I guess, her first of two 1974 albums. I don't know which order. They just both came out the same year on 20th Century. Yeah. For more rubies and sapphires from this album and from many other great female singers who pop and blue-eyed soul singers who just came and went after a couple of albums. See in the 1970s. See the directory of albums by American pop and blue-eyed soul artists linked in the description below. Like and subscribe and follow me on social media, and leave a comment if there are any observations you have about the three tracks. Actually, in this time we just heard the layers, the instrumentation, the nuances, the arrangements, the feel, the dynamics, the production methods employed. Yeah, the overall spacey vibe in some, to melodramatic to spicy and steamy. Yeah. And most importantly, your impressions of her as a vocalist, yeah, and her dynamics, her range, and her ability to conjure up certain moods. Yeah, I would say a very talented vocalist with range and very adept at different kinds of material. Yeah, three very different songs we heard, each conveying a different mood. And until next time, this is Zaragon, the world's most ear travel tram maximalist, signing off.